Omaha, 6 kid, Rocco Peralta passed ability to launch Hilo ASAP.
In July 2019, more than 100 unknown objects buzzed and swarmed around 10 U.S. Navy warships 100 miles off the Pacific coast. The objects were documented on camera, on radar, and on thermal sensors.
Whoa, splash.
Eyes are glued to the skies in Nevada and across the country because of an ongoing wave of mystery drones that have been spotted for the past few weeks. Drone-like craft have emerged each night over highly populated areas and even in restricted airspaces.
Now, most are explainable, but some have stumped both law enforcement and the military. Chief Investigator George Knapp reports that this is not the first drone swarm in recent years and likely won't be the last.
Omaha, 6 kid, Rocco Peralta passed ability to launch Hilo ASAP.
In July 2019, more than 100 unknown objects buzzed and swarmed around 10 U.S. Navy warships 100 miles off the Pacific coast. The objects were documented on camera, on radar, and on thermal sensors.
Whoa, splash.
In multiple shapes and sizes, including huge wingless orbs with no detectable propulsion system. Just drones, no biggie, the Pentagon suggested. A few years earlier, when Navy pilots on the East Coast encountered unusual objects on a daily basis in their training ranges, the debunkers called them drones or balloons or both, certainly not UFOs. In the past few years, the all-purpose term drones has replaced swamp gas and weather balloons as the military's go-to explanation for unknown objects. In what might be the most ironic of the current sightings, intrusions by so-called drones caused air traffic at Wright-Patterson Air Base to shut down this weekend. Wright-Pat is where the wreckage from the 1947 Roswell crash was reportedly stored. Nice touch, drone people.
We have no evidence at this time that the reported drone sightings pose a national security or a public safety threat or have a foreign nexus.
An assortment of government officials have tried to quell public concerns in recent weeks, but the public isn't buying it, and the mystery drones didn't get the memo either. Social media platforms are jam-packed with cell phone videos of assorted lights and odd objects seen nightly in the skies over New Jersey and many other states, including Florida, Texas, California, and Oregon. Most are likely the lights of airplanes, but some do resemble standard drones, albeit a few the size of an SUV. They do not perform like known drones. New Jersey officials have demanded briefings and say they were told the drones are not a threat, are not being flown by the U.S. government, are not being flown by foreign adversaries, and by the way, the government is unable to track them, doesn't know where they originate or where they go each morning.
It was the biggest amateur hour presentation I've ever seen about anything, okay? It was ridiculous. There were no answers. Every question that was asked by a member of the state legislature, great questions, no answers, no resolution. They don't know where the drones are coming from. They don't know who's doing it. They don't know why they're doing it, but they say there's no credible threat. It was annoying to be there.
The president-elect is among those who doubt what the public is being told.
They know where it came from and where it went. And for some reason, they don't want to comment.
That is not an airplane.
In the absence of credible information, rumors have swirled. Maybe they're from Russia or China or an Iranian mothership parked offshore. Or maybe it's a secret operation by the feds to quietly track down a dirty bomb or nuclear materials smuggled into the country by terrorists. Officials have tried to quash such rumors, but their credibility has been impaired. Just days ago, the public was told there were 0 verified drone intrusions into restricted airspace over military bases. Then, in a statement just days later from multiple agencies, including the FBI and the military, it was admitted there have been intrusions by unknown drones over 2 New Jersey military sites, also confirmed drone intrusions over a nuclear power plant. Prior to the New Jersey outbreak, mystery drones repeatedly flew into the highly restricted airspace over 3 critical air bases in the UK. So what gives?
It's a serious deal, man. We got to, I think it's a test. Somebody's testing us, and we're failing that test.
Now, at least 2 incidents involving incursions by mystery drones have been reported in Nevada. We're trying to track those down. Expect to have more information, hopefully, tomorrow.
Members of Congress received a classified intelligence briefing today about the drone swarms that have appeared for weeks now over a growing number of states. And then late this afternoon, the Department of Defense issued yet another statement about the mystery drones, assuring the public that it is taking the issue very seriously.
In Nevada and elsewhere, millions of eyes are fixed on the skies to try and catch objects that have appeared in restricted airspace and buzz critical infrastructure.
George Knapp is here with an overview.
At this moment, 1 year ago, there was another drone swarm that was underway. For a period of 2 weeks, dozens of unidentified objects swarmed Langley Air Force Base in Virginia. And even though that base has some of the most sophisticated technology in the world, it could not track, identify, or deter the so-called drones from entering restricted airspace. The same appears to still be true for our military, which has frequently blurred the line between identifiable drones and objects that are truly unknown.
Omaha, 60 kid, Rockdale Peralta pass ability to launch helo ASAP.
In July 2019, more than 100 unknown objects buzzed and swarmed around 10 U.S. Navy warships 100 miles off the Pacific coast. The objects were documented on camera, on radar, and on thermal sensors.
Splash.
In multiple shapes and sizes, including huge wingless orbs with no detectable propulsion system. Just drones, no biggie, the Pentagon suggested. A few years earlier, when Navy pilots on the East Coast encountered unusual objects on a daily basis in their training ranges, the debunkers called them drones or balloons or both, certainly not UFOs. 4 years ago this month, dozens of unknown drones appeared nightly for weeks in the heartland.
The sky is lit up with Christmas lights, basically. There's lights and things flying all over.
Sheriff's departments across the border area of 3 states have been flooded with similar reports since mid-December.
The U.S. military never learned who or what was behind it, as if it was just one of life's little mysteries. In the past few years, the all-purpose term drones has replaced swamp gas and weather balloons as the military's go-to explanation for unknown objects. In what might be the most ironic of the current sightings, intrusions by so-called drones caused air traffic at Wright-Patterson Air Base to shut down this weekend. Wright-Pat is where the wreckage from the 1947 Roswell crash was reportedly stored. Nice touch, drone people.
We have no evidence at this time that the reported drone sightings pose a national security or a public safety threat, or have a foreign nexus.
An assortment of government officials have tried to quell public concerns in recent weeks, but the public isn't buying it, and the mystery drones didn't get the memo either. Social media platforms are jam-packed with cell phone videos of assorted lights and odd objects seen nightly in the skies over New Jersey and many other states, including Florida, Texas, California, and Oregon. Most are likely the lights of airplanes, but some do resemble standard drones, albeit a few the size of an SUV. They do not perform like known drones. New Jersey officials have demanded briefings and say they were told the drones are not a threat, are not being flown by the U.S. government, are not being flown by foreign adversaries, and by the way, the government is unable to track them, doesn't know where they originate or where they go each morning.
It was the biggest amateur hour presentation I've ever seen about anything, okay? It was ridiculous. There were no answers. Every question that was asked by a member of the state legislature, great questions, no answers, no resolution. They don't know where the drones are coming from. They don't know who's doing it. They don't know why they're doing it, but they say there's no credible threat. It was annoying to be there.
The president-elect is among those who doubt what the public is being told.
They know where it came from and where it went. And for some reason, they don't want to comment.
That is not an airplane.
In the absence of credible information, rumors have swirled. Maybe they're from Russia or China or an Iranian mothership parked offshore. Or maybe it's a secret operation by the feds to quietly track down a dirty bomb or nuclear materials smuggled into the country by terrorists. Officials have tried to quash such rumors, but their credibility has been impaired. Just days ago, the public was told there were 0 verified drone intrusions into restricted airspace over military bases. Then, in a statement just days later from multiple agencies, including the FBI and the military, it was admitted there have been intrusions by unknown drones over 2 New Jersey military sites, also confirmed drone intrusions over a nuclear power plant. Prior to the New Jersey outbreak, mystery drones repeatedly flew into the highly restricted airspace over 3 critical air bases in the UK. So what gives?
It's a serious deal, man. We gotta. I think a test. Somebody's testing us, and we're failing that test.
The Pentagon emphasized today that it still thinks many or most of these drones are hobbyist or corporate drones, but that's not very reassuring since the military and police seem unable to track them back to whoever is flying them. 20 years ago, when the Navy pilots encountered this famous Tic Tac object, military sensors allegedly could track a golf ball 100 miles away. Now we can't follow drones that are reportedly the size of automobiles. You know, the hearing today was classified, but it's not a big deal, not a threat. Don't worry about it.
Not getting a lot of answers. Couldn't some of them be spy drones essentially sent by our adversaries or enemies?
Absolutely, there could. And, last week, of course, the Pentagon said, no, they're not. They're absolutely ruled that out. But, of course, now they're saying, well, maybe they are. And I think that if that was the case, if China is flying drones all over the country, over military bases, nuclear sites, that's pretty scary because we're not able to track them. We can't or won't bring them down. That sends a really strange signal to our adversaries if that's the case.
That's a whole different story.
Watching this unfold is great fun. All these officials and cops and small town guys who are asking questions about what's flying around in the sky, and they're getting the same kind of runaround that those of us from UFO world are used to all these years.
You can relate.
I can. Yeah.
So many of them are fidgeting in their seats for sure. All right, George, thanks so much.
All right, mystery solved. Those unknown drones that have been buzzing around for months, baffling the public, the FBI, and the military, they weren't a mystery to the FAA. The White House revealed this week the FAA had authorized flights of so-called research drones in and around New Jersey. But the explanation has raised a whole new set of questions. Chief Investigator George Knapp is here live to ask a few of them. George.
Well, the first question that could have been asked by the White House press corps would start with two words. What the? The second question would be, was the entire leadership of the FAA off on a 2-month spelunking retreat deep inside the bowels of the earth and thus didn't know about these mystery drone swarms? I mean, FAA, what's the deal? The new White House spokesperson had a full plate of topics when she dropped this little bombshell.
The drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons.
That is not an airplane.
Since late November, residents of New Jersey have been seeing odd drones in the skies. Former Governor Chris Christie says one flew over his house. Football star Aaron Rodgers saw one fly over his car. Hundreds of video clips and photos were posted on social media sites, and news coverage was wall to wall for weeks. Most of the images seemed to show objects that were not all that mysterious, misidentified planes and regular drones. But as the mystery deepened and the drones kept flying, Congress started asking questions, and the FBI launched an investigation.
We just don't know, and that's the concerning part.
According to the White House, the FAA suddenly remembered that it had authorized flights of research drones. How many? Over what area? The FAA website doesn't say. Way back in the distant past, December 17th, the FAA signed a joint statement with the FBI, Department of Defense, and Homeland Security to say that it was dispatching advanced detection technology and trained observers to New Jersey to help investigate the drone mystery. The FAA had also ordered flight restrictions on drones over much of New Jersey, but it didn't fess up. Here's where the mystery gets stickier. In December, drones penetrated the restricted airspace over a New Jersey nuclear plant and over multiple military facilities on the East Coast. Drones caused Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Ohio to shut down for a period. Coincidentally, during the same period when the East Coast was being inundated, formations of mystery objects invaded the highly restricted airspace over 4 essential air bases in the UK. The intrusions continued for weeks and were well coordinated, and according to media reports, the U.S. deployed its best anti-drone technology, but it had no effect on the intruders. And what about the serious intrusions that took place for 17 straight nights at Langley Air Force Base in Virginia, exactly a year earlier? Government officials acknowledged they employed their best anti-drone tech, but were unable to jam or track the intruders. Members of Congress have speculated that some of the drones were launched from Iranian motherships or Chinese submarines, or were flown by Russia. Exasperated officials in New Jersey didn't buy those theories back in December and might not swallow this one either. It seems like the FAA should be able to answer some pretty basic questions. When did it authorize the unknown research drones? How many of them were authorized? Over what period of time? And why didn't it come clean when so many agencies, including the FAA itself, were trying to figure this out? Back to you.
Well, another week, another major news story related to UFOs. The New York Times is reporting about the contents of a soon-to-be-released Pentagon investigation into the UFO mystery.
Yeah, the Times says the report to Congress will leave open the question of whether some UFOs are indeed alien spacecraft. George Knapp has our story.
The initial New York Times headline declared government finds no evidence UFOs are alien spacecraft, then clarified things in a later headline that added the government can't rule out alien tech either. A more accurate headline could have been, Pentagon says we don't know what UFOs are. Or, the real news in the story, Pentagon says UFOs are not secret American technology. Unnamed officials who've seen a classified report not yet provided to Congress told the Times the report analyzes 120 UFO incidents from over the past 13 years. Much of the evidence was previously compiled into a briefing document produced by the UAP Task Force, a report that includes startling images of craft considered to be true unknowns. A few images and videos from that report have already been made public by Mystery Wire and filmmaker Jeremy Corbell. Photos taken by Navy pilots off the East Coast and videos recorded by the Navy off the West Coast. Unknown objects that surrounded 9 warships in July 2019.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA.
2 other incidents evaluated by the UAP Task Force, the so-called Gimbal UFO event off Florida in 2015 and the Tic Tac incident off Southern California in 2004. The Times says the unreleased report leaves open the question of whether the amazing technology might belong to a foreign adversary. David Fravor, the pilot who chased the Tic Tac, shared his opinions with us in 2019.
If you'd have asked me in 2004, I didn't know. My thing is, it's now almost 15 years later, and that technology is still, no one has figured it out or no one has seen it. You can hide stuff for a long time, but hiding stuff for 15 years I think it gets harder and harder.
If the Times story is accurate, then the upcoming UFO report will be amazingly similar to this assessment written by an American general back in 1947, which basically said these things are real, but we don't know whose they are. The biggest news in the Times story is that the report essentially will rule out the possibility that secret American military tech is responsible for the most notable UFO incidents.
Splash.
Former Nevada Senator Harry Reid, who co-sponsored the predecessor program to the UAP Task Force, has said all along that the Russians and Chinese are also studying the UFO mystery for the same reason we are, meaning they're not ours. Lou Elizondo, who spent 10 years as head of the ATIP UFO investigation, says the technology seen by U.S. pilots is beyond anything known on Earth. He told Mystery Wire the U.S., Russia, and China are all in the same boat.
It's rotating.
We may be dealing with something here that we really don't understand, because if we're having the same problem that Russia is in other countries, then chances are this is this is a topic that is of mutual concern and interest for more than just the United States. In fact, it would paint a picture that this is not a U.S. phenomenon at all, but this is rather a global phenomenon.
The UAP report is due in Congress by June 25th. What we don't know yet is what access the task force had to classified files and materials stashed in dark corners of the Pentagon or CIA. After 70 years of secrecy, did the task force crack that veil in a mere 6 months? Retired intelligence officer Colonel John Alexander doubts it.
Well, I think there's 2 issues. The most serious pushback you're not going to see. That's going to happen behind the curtain, if you will. This is where they say, hell no, we won't go. I'm not going to provide the data.
George Knapp, 8 News Now.
Well, George adds that the biggest difference between the upcoming UFO report and previous statements provided by the Pentagon is that the military is no longer being dismissive of UFOs or trying to brush them off as swamp gas or weather balloons.
Advanced
advanced technology and close calls highlight what has been released from a Pentagon report on UFOs. The executive summary was made public today.
That's right. Well, there are some things already known about what is and what is not included. George Knapp of Mystery Wire is here to tell us more. Hey, George.
Good to see both of you. This is the long-awaited report here, compiled by the UAP Task Force as directed by Congress, released to the public late on a Friday afternoon, and it consisted of a whopping 9 pages. 2 of those pages are indexes, and 1 is a cover page, so there wasn't much there. But anyone who's been paying attention would have known this report was never going to be a tell-all expose, an admission that space aliens are among us, that the Roswell crash happened, or that spaceships have been stashed out near Area 51. The reality is there were 2 reports. One was a longer, classified version given only to Congress, containing sensitive materials that the public may never see, and then the shorter, less definitive summary for the public right here. The report acknowledges the obvious. There could be many explanations for the cases examined by the military. The report included 144 total cases, 80 of those detected on multiple sensors. There were 11 incidents where American warplanes had near mid-air collisions with the unknown objects. There were 18 cases where the objects exhibited unusual flight characteristics. For the most report, that makes the case that we really do not know how to categorize these objects, that we lack information, and mostly that we lack the ability to ever figure them out. That what we need are better sensors, a free exchange of information, and less stigma for service members to report these things. Late today, we got the first comments from former Nevada Senator Harry Reid, who got the ball rolling on UFO studies back in 2007.
Senator, so it's finally out, an underwhelming 9 pages, at least the public version of the report. What's your initial impressions?
Well, the government has acknowledged that they don't know what these unidentified flying objects are. And so when I started talking about this years ago, people made fun of me, and even my own staff thought I was crazy in talking about it. But in hindsight, I'm glad I did. Certainly, we now know that they have 142 sightings. We know there have been more than that. But it's something that, as far as I'm concerned, this is a preliminary report. And I mean preliminary. There needs to be a tremendous amount of government resources put into this. So we better understand it so it's not some kind of a fringe part of what government's doing. They've got to dive into this, because we and the American people are entitled to know what the hell's going on.
One possible outcome from this report could be congressional hearings into the UFO mystery. There were 2 such hearings back in the 60s, but since then, UFOs have been considered too wacky for Congress to touch.
George, in your experience in this field, how big of a step toward disclosure is this report?
It's not really disclosure. It's one step toward disclosure. What it is sort of a form of confirmation that we actually have a legitimate mystery in here. This report essentially makes the case that we need a permanent, ongoing study. And if we're ever going to figure this out, we've got to assign it to someone, establish a framework for that, make it easier for our military members to report it, and then provide some money to dig into it and figure it out.
Certainly.
Wow. And George, this is all really interesting. You said that this is a really big day. Where do we go from here? What's the next step?
Well, I think we need to put some money into it, establish a permanent study, but already what's happened is a remarkable change that I never thought I would see in my lifetime, all these years of chasing this crazy mystery. The Congress has admitted it's a legitimate mystery. It deserves our attention. They called for the UAP Task Force to be created. They created it. A report was put together by the Pentagon. The media is interested. They're covering it, that not all of us are totally crazed and out of our minds, and that it's a legitimate subject of inquiry. That's a remarkable change in just a short period of time, and I can't wait to see what happens next.
All right. Well, I bet you've got a lot more calls to your radio show in those overnight hours, right?
Yes. Yeah, and all day long. Yeah, all day long.
All day long. All right. Anything more you'd like to add on it, George?
No, I'm really excited about it. It's an exciting time that, as I said, I didn't think I'd see. And there's so much more outside this very thin realm that was dug into by the task force of military encounters. There's so many more cases that have not been investigated, and there's a great history. This only looked at cases from the Tic Tac on 2004 through 2021. This has a 74-year history in the modern era, and maybe thousands of years more than that to look into.
Wow.
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it really is. Thank you so much for being here, George.
Sure.
We greatly appreciate that.